This podcast is sponsored by One Gutter Guard, the premium gutter guard that delivers the highest performance, quality, and value to your customers. From its different mesh filters to its unibody construction, One Gutter Guard can be the difference maker in your business. Are you interested in becoming part of the exclusive dealer network? Contact them today at onegutterguard.com or just give them a call. Now back to our show.
What's going on, guys? This is Tim with the Gutter Growth Podcast. I got Bobby G with me. What's going on, Bobby? How you doing today?
Hey, fantastic. Even when I'm not, man.
That's it, man. So I know that you have some background working with Leaf Filter. Can you go ahead and kind of fill us all in with your background story?
Yeah. You know, it's kind of a unique story. I started out in door-to-door between the ages of like 8 and 10, selling magazines. And at the time, it was kind of like a Green Beret thing for me when I look back at it, because I was so shy. I got picked on quite a bit, that type of thing. And doing that and having that group of guys that came around the community and said, hey, we're looking for anybody and everybody who wants to, go make some money and sell magazines door to door. Did that. It may not have been a business thing for me, but what it did is it helped me to accumulate the mental acuity to get alligator skin early on in life. And really, as I was doing that, I learned pretty quickly, both through experience and the people that were teaching us, that those people aren't necessarily rejecting me, but are just kind of rejecting the offer at the time, that offer at that time being magazines. So that helped me lay a foundation of developing alligator skin early on. After that,
that's pretty young.
Yes, it is very, very young. And I moved from that into, I guess when I was 12, 13, I started selling rainbow vacuum cleaners. Rainbow vacuum cleaners were pretty exclusive because they had the water in the bottom. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Was that Kirby's competitor?
That was Kirby's nemesis back then, boy, I'll tell you what. But yeah, absolutely. And then I started selling Kirby's as well. And at the time, it's maybe a little bit different than nowadays, or as of recent, we went door to door to get the appointments for Kirby as well, giving out free cans of Coca-Cola or free cans of Pepsi or whatever we could possibly give them to get in that door to sell that stuff. And then I think when I really, really reached my peak when it comes to sales is, well, not my peak, I should say, when I graduated out of kind of being a kid selling and taking it serious, and the goal being making money, was selling frozen foods. And I started selling frozen foods door to door. And that's when I realized that if you have a product that people not only need, but want, there's money to be made in it. I mean, I was Bobby G, the meat man, right? Selling frozen foods door to door. And then I opened my own companies doing that. And at one point had like 60 salespeople out there selling frozen foods door to door. Interestingly enough, at the same time, Jordan Belfort was doing the same thing. You know who Jordan Belfort is?
I do. Yeah,
the Wolf of Wall Street, baby. Yep. The Wolf of Wall Street. He's got a real popular sales training right now called the straight line method. That is pretty cool. But yeah, right before he got into penny stocks, he was doing the same thing. When I got done selling meat, that's when I was introduced to home improvements and the one call close. I got introduced to that because I came on as a consultant with a large window company and sunroom company. And I knew through Tony Robbins already at that time that the best way to be elite in any endeavor, whether it's sports or business, is to mirror and model somebody that's doing it on a high level. I got connected with somebody out in Flint, Michigan. When I was in Madison, Wisconsin, his name was Nick Richmond. Nick Richmond was the cat's meow as far as I was concerned, right? I thought I knew how to sell prior to that, but when I met Nick Richmond, I found out what I didn't know. And if I thought I had a system prior to Nick Richmond, that got erased when I met Nick Richmond, because he was system. And he had something that still sticks with me today, and that is doing the same thing regarding that system, doing the same thing over and over again without the bias to result. Nick Richmond at that time was using a system called the Grasso system. Rick Grasso, who was kind of the G of the one call close back then and in-home sales, and really developing a system. The kind of cool thing about that is we skip to today, and now the person who now has taken on that legacy of Rick Grasso, who rest in peace, has passed, Dominic Caminada, he now runs and owns Grasso University. And I'm going to be doing some collaborating with him. If you get a chance to look up Dominic Caminada's story as to how in 2010 he told himself that he was going to carry on Rick Grasso's legacy. And then fast forward 14 years later, he's doing exactly that in an absolute exemplary way. And it's because he buys into the same type of thing that I do, which is there is no sales, there is no consistency in any sales without a proven system that you can stick to.
That's true. I know that Leaf Filter is pretty big on the systems, right?
They are, absolutely.
And did you work with Leaf Filter a little bit?
I did. I worked with them for many years on and off. And my last year with them, I did about $344,000 in income in like 8 months. Wow. If you average that out, you're looking at me finishing the year at well over $500,000. And my key thing at Leaf Filter was I wasn't always the number one closing ratio guy, but I was always the number one in the high ticket. I believe that year I had like an 8,500 average sale, 8,500 average sale, when the average person at that company, and they had a couple thousand reps at that time, right? The average person at that company was probably doing $3,800, $4,500 average sale.
Okay.
So I was most of the time twice as much. And that was my forte, was not necessarily being the number one closer. You know, I was in top 5-10, number one closer, but I was always 1, 2, or 3 in the amount of money that I made, and capitalizing on that lead or that appointment and really loving the one you're with and getting as much money as you possibly can without gouging, right?
Right. So you had more profitable deals.
I had much more profitable deals. Yes. And Leaf Filter is probably the epitome of a juggernaut in the sense that they got to where they are because of the fact that they have an extremely duplicatable system, right? I mean, just about anybody, if you have the right manager, if you're honest, hungry, humble, and coachable, you can succeed at Leaf Filter because of the simplicity of their system that they've developed. That's what's got them to where they are today, and being, I think they'll probably finish out this year at $2 billion with a few thousand sales reps. That's all.
Is it fair to say that most companies don't have a system at all when it comes to sales other than getting out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, for those independent sales reps out in those organizations, and, you know, for me, unfortunately for the consumer, right? Because I feel like people that have systems like the systems that I implement in my training, they not only create a easier job for the sales reps, because an unskilled sales rep causes problems with the consumer, right? The poor old little old lady that just gets pressured, because without skill set, you got nothing but pressure, right?
So that guy that you were telling me, did he work with, what was the guy's name that's carrying on the legacy?
That is Dominic Caminada. And Dominic, he started, I hate to tell his story because it's so magnificent. It's like he tells it best, right? Because you know, he's feeling it in his soul. But, you know, I feel it in my soul a little bit when I hear the story, because 2010, Dominic Caminada, he had never been in sales at all. right?
Wow.
He got in with a pretty successful company, but not kind of average at the time, Mad City Windows, which is kind of the premier company around here now. He accelerated very, very quickly with that company, became the sales manager with that company. Back in like 2004, when I got into sales, I met Nick Richmond, and he became my mentor in the one call close. He was using Rick Grasso. Mad City, the brother there was running Mad City, and that was Nate Richmond. Well, guess what system he used? The Grasso system. Well, in 2010, a little later on, Dominic Caminata, who eventually became the manager, the sales manager over there, he said to himself, I am one day, actually he told Rick Grasso early on, I am one day going to carry on your legacy. Well, fast forward 14 years, 13 years later, he wins the boot camp that Rick Grasso would have, right? It was a competition. He won it, and he took Rick Grasso out to dinner, said, I just wanted to let you know, and he assumed the sale because that's what us guys that are high level in sales do. We assume the sale all the time. And he said, I came to let you know and invited you to dinner to let you know I'm going to carry on your legacy. And those guys used a system more than I've ever seen. The Mad City, I think they might have did 180, 200 million last year.
What is the Grasso system for those who don't know?
The Grasso system is a one call close system whereby you're not worried about coming back the next day. You're not following up. You're pretty much done the day that you're there. You've got a system whereby you have the intro and warm up. You've got mindset versus skill set, which is when we drive up to a home, what do we do when we drive up to a home? You may not always be on your second or third appointment that day. If it's your first appointment, you're going to want to get your mind right. So you want to, what Dominic Caminata calls shadow closing, right? So shadow closing, meaning you'll go back to when you had that really successful sale. Everybody, including you, Tim, we got that story that we just can't stop telling about how we went in there. It went perfectly. The grandmother was there. The sister-in-law was there. There were 5 people there. Everything went great. They made us cookies. It was a $12,000, $15,000 sale, and we made $4,000, right? If we have the best time to succeed at any given task is after a previous success, right? Because we elite, we build on success to success to success. And some of us just live for it, right? We live for those of the deal. Putting yourself first and foremost into that situation, because the mind does not differentiate between something that really is happening or is just being envisioned. If you really put yourself in that home and you really just feel that place, you feel how it felt, you smell how it smelled, you can see the kitchen table, you can see what the kitchen looks like, put yourself in that state to be ready to move and to succeed. So that's the first and foremost step, right? Then you go up to the customer's house, and there's a certain way that you're going to knock on the door versus ringing the doorbell, right? Mm-hmm. Friends normally are knocking on the door, dump, 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 right? And the strangers bing the buzzer, and the cops, right? Dum, 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 dum. So we want to stay away from those two.
You want a friendly knock.
You want a friendly knock. And that being said, there's a step-by-step process every single step of the way, from how we knock on the door, from do we back up or do we encroach into it? No, we back up.
I always back up.
Absolutely.
I like to stand to the side too, so it's like I'm not like boom staring at them when they come out.
Just like all professionals do. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the Grasso system is exactly what it says. It is a system. So there is a step for everything, from your mindset before you go in to where you're going to seat them at the kitchen table, right? To the discovery, to explaining to them what's going to take place, down to a kill kit, your presentation, your company story, your pre-close, your evolution, your close, all the way down to the button up. And that's not all of the steps. I just do some of it, but all the way down to the button up to where at the end of that sale, you have that customer sell that product back to you.
So if it's your first call, what are some of the things that you do to get yourself in that mindset from some previous wins? Like what's some couple tactics that you use?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like I said before, when it comes to coming to there for the first time, or coming to a sale and it's your first sale of the day, you're not going to have that momentum that you need. So a lot of times I'll do the Tony Robbins, jump up and down, stick my chest out, right? Yep. And I will put myself in the past success that I had, or something that's going to put me in the right mental state. Now, does it have to be that previous sale? Not necessarily. Maybe it's when you had your baby, right? And you really felt wonderful about that. Maybe you put yourself there and you start stacking these memories, is what Tony Robbins would say, right? And getting yourself in the proper mental state. But what I do every single time is I will sit in the vehicle and I will envision the best sale that I had, or the one that I remember most recently, that's going to put me in a positive state of achievement because I succeeded by closing that deal and watching myself go through everything that took place in that home. I want to remember everything I can. The more senses you can touch when you're envisioning that previous sale, the more powerful and confident you're going to feel going into there, because confidence is first and foremost when it comes, because we're always going to fall to our highest level of preparation. And our preparation has to do with our mind as well, because you've heard it over and over again that 80% of this is psychology and 10 or 20% of it is the actual mechanics.
It's true. And that momentum's really true too. I remember one time, I would do like 8 quotes in a day, but
nice.
One particular day I did 16 and I sold every single one of them. I don't think I've ever
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was just 16 in a row.
Wow, and that's phenomenal.
Yep.
Congratulations on that one. So there's your day, right? There's your mindset over skill set. No matter what has gone on with you that day, if you can effectively and accurately go back to that day and remember all the specific details of that 16 close day, which I've never had. I mean, so you're the king.
It's hard to even do that many
quantity closing in a day. Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, for me, most of the time it's taken an hour at least. So 16 quotes. I mean, I've put in 16-hour days, but a whole lot of that is traveling.
Right. Yeah, no, it worked out that day. It was just, I guess I had everything mapped out right. Like I had an estimate down the street and then down the street, but that's probably not duplicatable again.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely a win to go back to.
I've dreamt of days like that where there's an appointment 20 minutes or 15 minutes away. I think I heard, I forget whose story that was. Was that Grant's story? I think Grant had a story where he had a bunch of appointments that were 15, 20 minutes away from each other on one of his killer days. That's way different than in, customary home improvement sales where you're running between an hour and 2.5 hours to an appointment.
Martel had a question. He says, do you recommend door knocking to acquire gutter jobs? Do you do any of that?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, I did. I built a whole home improvement company, going door to door, right? You've got to somehow create some sort of exclusivity when you're going door to door like that. But if you've got the proper system and the proper steps in place, I feel like a door to door nebulous lead or appointment like that is really strong. Not only is it really, really strong, but it's a non-competitive appointment, because half the time when you go there, these people, when you're doing door to door, they're not completely conscious of the need that they have till you bring that to their mind, right? Now they're conscious of the need that they have. the odds of them now calling saying, well, gee, this guy just came door to door, let me go get a few more estimates, is pretty nil, right?
Right.
When you're doing door to door, you're the exclusive appointment, right? You're the exclusive appointment. Not to mention, if somebody's going door to door and they set an appointment with you and they let you inside of their home, guess what? They want to buy. You're a complete stranger that just came knocking at their door, and you're setting the appointment up. Especially if they let you in the house. And listen, you got to get in the house. And we can talk about that later on, or we can talk about it now. But the odds of closing that deal on the doorsteps is depreciated quite a bit if you're not getting in the home. And I got a beautiful way to get in the home, let me tell you. Beautiful way.
Can you walk us through that process? How would you approach a door-to-door knocking for gutter jobs? Like, I know that the way I would approach it, it would be in a neighborhood that I'm already working in.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend in a neighborhood that you're already working in. When I did door-to-door frozen foods, right, we would always make sure that we went to an area where we had a couple customers, right? Hey, I was just making deliveries to some of your customers, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. I don't know if you know them or not. And hey, I've got steak, chicken, and seafood for less than $8 a steak. You eat steak, right?
Absolutely.
So what we did as youngsters, right, we had a receipt book, and they said, you eat steak, right? And it'd be a brochure inside of it. And I'd say, great, check this out. I'll be right back. Hold on one second. I'll show you what I got. I'm handing them the brochure, but my receipt book's in there with it. So that's my property that we would leave with them back then.
That's awesome. So how would you approach it on a gutter job?
On a gutter job, it's been a while. The last time I did door to door was windows, right? So okay. I had to come up with some sort of exclusivity or, call to action at the door. And ours was, if I could show you a way how I could say, not only get you a house full of windows, but have those windows pay for themselves within 2 to 3 years. Is that something you want to hear more about? I think when it comes to generating leads and appointments door to door, you got to come up with an alternative choice question, right? Not be so direct like what I just said. Is that something you'd like to hear more about? I would first take a look at the house very, very closely and as inconspicuously as I possibly can prior to going up there. And I think it would be very similar in the pain point that you would be able to convey to that potential customer is, when you've got tiger striping on the gutters, right. Listen, I was just in your neighborhood. We were just taking care of the job down the street, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They went and replaced all their gutters and downspouts. As I was walking by, I noticed kind of the same thing that Mrs. Jones has. Where that gutter connects to that fascia board there? Well, there happens to be water going back behind there. And that usually happens because it's not sealed up. Hey, if I could give you a absolutely free home inspection and free estimate, that's at least something you'd want to hear more about, right?
Yeah, at least so I know what the cost
is. And that was impromptu, right? I haven't done door to door since 2007. I built a home improvement company, a full line home improvement company that did exteriors, and we did not buy any leads, appointments, or nothing for 16 months. We did just door to door. So as long as you can get the proper licensing in those areas and you develop an actual script that works, it can be phenomenal. I mean, I had teams out there. The average person was out there getting 4, 5, 6 appointments every single day.
That's not bad. That's self-produced appointments.
It's just like in sales though, right? You can't just wing it. You can't just go door to door and just hope for the best, saying something different every single time. You got to develop a specific script that has the proper intro, the proper warm-up. It's got to be quick. Then it's got to have the proper alternative choice call to action. And then you do that same thing over and over again, because if you do the same thing over and over again, regardless of the bias to result on whether you get that appointment, the law of averages is just going to kick in. And then it's just a mathematical equation. We knew back then selling meat that if we knocked on 100 doors, we were going to be able to talk to 20 people. 10 people were potentially going to let us show the product, and 4 or 5 of those we're going to buy every time. It was just a mathematical equation. And, when I think today about, views and clicks and that type of thing, it's the same type of thing, right?
Same thing.
If you spend $2 and you're getting a certain amount of success and you get 10 customers for spending $2, how many times do you want to spend $2 to get those 10 customers?
I know.
You just have to have a system.
I haven't really done any door-to-door since maybe, seems like 08, 09, 010, around there. I know my approach was I wasn't really knocking on just anyone's door. I was kind of looking for problems before I knocked on the door. That way I had something to address,
Yeah, absolutely.
So they could have a new roof being put on, and you see just downspouts on the wall, or if I see some gutter falling off, or like you said, tiger striping everywhere and the gutters just look a mess. Those are the houses that I targeted just to kind of save time. And I sold jobs with it, but I wouldn't say it was like my number one strategy when I was growing a business. I preferred hot leads because you could do digital door knocking too, where you're having people come to you.
Yeah.
He has another question. Is there a certain license to go door to door? Do you need a solicitor's license?
I didn't back then. But yes, right now you do have to have a solicitor's license. Most places you're at, I don't know where you don't have to. I know at the time they just started doing it when I was kind of venturing off into some other things, and you paid like $30 or something. You got to have the license ahead of time. Some places are going to want you to get it 3 days in advance, sometimes 7, sometimes 10. All your people are going to need to wear badges, and all your people are going to have to get background checks as well. So if you're going to do it the right way and you want some longevity to it, so you're not getting complaints, so that the next time you want to go to that township, that city, that village, they let you do it again, because if it catch you doing without it, they probably won't let you go back there again. So absolutely, I think that just about every place now, you do have to have a license, a solicitor's license to go door to door.
I feel like it's probably a county or city thing. So you'd probably want to check with the county or city that you're in.
Yeah. It's not that expensive. I know that. It's just more of a headache coordinating it, because they got to do a background check. So it's going to be, you got to apply 7 days ahead of time. I know there's a place in Wisconsin, 30 days ahead of time in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. But some of those places is because they don't want you there.
So he said, what's a good method you found for digital door knocking? I was just using that word referring to marketing periods. So like, Google AdWords or Facebook or anything to bring hot leads into you. I feel like it's much easier to have 5 or 8 appointments a day if they're already looking for that service. And me personally, I think the door knocking is good. Like if you're in a neighborhood and you're hitting that street, that's probably how I would manage it versus just putting someone out in the street every day. What's your feelings on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of times, people that are doing the door knocking because they're either a newer business or they're trying to work with a shoestring budget. I think that when all of the dust settles, all of that door to door, all of the headache, all of the paying for those, all of the turnover because of the people that are doing the door to door for you, I think it really saves you money to spend the money ahead of time on some quality, ad campaigns, whether it be Google search words, whether it be Facebook, whatever it may be, where those people call you, because the closing percentage is always, and maybe some people will disagree with me, that's okay. The closing percentage is always going to be higher when people are calling you. Always.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, it's sometimes the drawback, not the drawback, but the sacrifice you have to make is that it's not going to be that nebulous appointment where they're not going to get other bids. When people are calling you, usually they've been on the phone and they've called other people, or Angie's List is sending a few people out there. So it's going to be a little more of a competitive appointment. And that's where a sales system comes into place, so that you know how to do things like deal with competitive appointments and getting around, shop around, and getting around. I want to have new estimates and that type of thing. But I personally think, and I've gone through this with experience and dealing with all nebulous leads, all door to door, all show, all how cheap can I get these leads and appointments. I want quantity, not quality, right? And that's how I started out in the home improvement business back in 2004, doing that same thing.
And you're
I'd
going to
rather have the quality now.
You're going to have different leads that are, different qualities. Like I track the KPIs. I help my guys track the KPIs on,
of course,
each sales source or each lead source. So you might have a lead that's, costing you $50, but your closing rate is just very low on that one because it's real competitive. Or you might have another lead source that's costing you $100 per lead, but you're actually closing more of them and the ticket price is higher. Or you could have a lead source that you're selling quite a bit on, but your ticket price is way lower on that source. So I think it's good to dial in, the numbers of how much is the lead costing me, what's my closing ratio, what is the job costing me, and what is my closing, ticket price, your average ticket price. And if you dial in those numbers, you'll be able to figure out which method is going to work best. And I usually try to stick to 3 different ones. You don't just want to do one thing. You want to be in several places, but it's figuring out those 3 top performing lead sources.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was first going into home improvement consulting and owned a couple of home improvement companies by myself as well, 3 to 5 of those lead generating systems and appointment generating systems, and you just kind of move around that money as to what's working better at that time. And then you just start funneling money into that area until that changes, because throughout the year, different times, different things are going to work better than other.
So Bobby, going back to it, now you're doing, you actually do sales training now.
I do. And one of the things that I do that I feel, and many of my clients agree, keeps me sharp is I continue to go out into the field and sell. I'm 57 years old. I've been doing it for a long, long time. There's been times where I've stopped doing it, but I'm a big fan of Roman culture. I'm 100% Italian, so I'm a big fan of Roman culture. I want to lead like Julius Caesar. Now, I'm not going into his politics or politics in any way, and whether you like him, that's not my point. My point was that he was an extremely famous leader. And one of the reasons he had such loyalty and commitment from his warriors is because he led from the front, right? So that being said, I lead from the front. I lead from the front because I get out of this shirt, I get into a polo, and I go out there and I close deals with the one call close system that I teach. I close those deals at a high level. I close those deals at $8, $9, $10,000 for just gutters and gutter protection. Most of the time, gutter protection. So my forte is closing those deals at a high value. If you're familiar with those percentages, everybody's got a par, a list, and a plus list. I'm closing deals, and my clients are closing deals at 120, 130, 140% the list almost all the time because they're using a proven system.
I feel like a lot of guys are just not selling leaf filter products or leaf protection products when they should be. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost double the ticket price if you're selling it. How do you convey that to customers that they need protection?
Absolutely, you can. Trauma is the main thing. And I think I'm not really sure. I have not talked to that many just gutter salespeople. In fact, I think you might be probably the most successful just gutter sales guy that I've ever met. And it's the trauma, right? When we go up to a house, there's a few things that we do. You know, I always have a release of dopamine when I go up to the house. I introduce myself, let them know what company. Hey, Tim, I know you've been excited about the gutter show, little corny, right? And after I've done that and introduced myself and let them know, you know, one of the things, nothing's all about role play, right? Kind of role play. One of the things that I always like about tiger striping, right? You see that black stuff up there? You see that black stuff up here?
I do.
Tiger striping, that water that's going over the front, guess what else it does? It's kind of, that water's going over the front. It's going over the back. Now you see connects to a fascia wrap that connects to a fascia board.
We lost you. We'll give him a second to come right back on.
Back.
You're back. All right.
I guess we had some technical difficulties. That's all right. So, creating trauma. We've established ourselves as the professional. We made them laugh with a corny joke because I want to release that dopamine, because there's a little bit of sales resistance when we first get there, right? Everybody's kind of feeling each other out. That gutter is connected to a fascia wrap that is connected to a board behind that, okay? Now, when that water runs over the front, and you can see because of the tiger striping, wouldn't you agree that you've probably seen water run over the front?
Yeah.
When it runs over the front, it also runs over the back. And when it runs over the back, it gets behind that piece of metal. That metal's there to protect that board. It's not supposed to get wet. You see that gap up there between the gutter and the fascia board? That gap, that's not supposed to be there, okay? With gutter protection, once we rebuild the inside of your gutters and put brackets inside of there, seal it up really nice, now the gutters are like brand new, or replace the gutters if we need to replace the gutters, right? If you're in the gutter business, you're not going to say you're going to rebuild gutters. You're going to replace the gutters almost every time and find a reason to do so. Now, after we've got your new gutters up there, your problem's not going to be completely solved. I'll be completely transparent with you guys. If I just took these gutters down, put all brand new gutters, all brand new downspouts on there, another 5 years or so, you might have the same darn problem. But I'll tell you what, we have a gutter protection solution where we put that gutter protection on there. Now you're not even going to have a grain of sand go inside of there. So now you never, ever have to worry about protecting your gutters again and keeping debris out of there. I mean, if you could have a permanent solution that would put you in position to never have to clean these gutters again, that's at least something you'd want to hear more about, isn't it?
I think it is.
That's it.
Let's see. What's a great app for the gutter business? I've heard Jobber. I like Jobber. I've used a couple of them, but Jobber is probably the best. And one thing I like about Jobber is that you could add on line items, and these line items, you could have it to where it's not reflective on the price unless they opt into it. So I used it for upsells because a lot of times, you know, you could put splash blocks in there, leaf guard, ground spouts, you know, these underground drainage. You could offer them things, and I like to call it the power of suggestion. If you don't ask, or if you don't tell, you're not going to get. So I like it because I could use it to suggest things, and it doesn't scare them away with the price, but they could still see the price and then opt into it. And some people do it. I didn't do it this way. Some people did it where the invoice was just completely zeroed out, and they had to opt into everything and kind of build theirs. I didn't particularly did that. I would go for what they were asking me, and then I would have other options, and I would let them know. So I think that's a great
Nice.
app for upselling.
Nice.
So tell us a little bit more about the sales mastery.
All right. So I think that, my philosophy on sales is I've read a lot of Chris Voss, who is a hostage negotiator, a lot of psychology behind sales. And I think first and foremost, you have got to develop a system, right? I have a system whereby it's been built over probably the last 18 months that I was in full-time direct sales. I've stuck with that same exact thing. And I think that when you have a presentation that is built to have objection prevention, you're much more able to close that deal at a higher level than just at the end with objection overcoming, because I felt like that's what sales was all about early on in my sales career. Just overcoming objection before the client just kind of clams up because they admit, yeah, you're that good. You got an answer for everything, but you really have not established the want, the need, and built the value. So my thing is
how do you get ahead of it?
How do you get ahead of building the value?
Well, how do you get ahead of the objections? Like, how are you hitting the objections before they actually give them to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, shop around is a big objection. I think everybody has dealt with that. Again, I haven't sold just gutters consistently. I always sold the gutters with the gutter protection, right? But shop around's a big deal. So I don't know if you guys have heard of a kill kit, but in every industry, you should have like a kill kit, which is, some of your competitors. And if you're going to move into adding that value to your business and having gutter protection, let me just digress for a second. I think if you're doing just gutters, it's a challenge. It's got to be a challenge to differentiate your gutters from somebody else's gutters, right? They're aluminum.
The same machine.
You're all coming out of the same machine. So ultimately, they're going to be buying you, and you got to differentiate between you and somebody else they met with, create the proper rapport, and you got to differentiate your company. And that's all you have to go with. If you incorporate a gutter protection system into what you're selling, you now can choose a gutter protection system that has a unique selling proposition. What is it about that gutter protection system that separates you from everybody else? I think everybody selling gutters should be selling gutter protection systems, right? Because then when you got people that say, I'm sure you guys must hear this all the time, well, our gutters aren't that old. They're only 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. We just need you to put a little, caulk right there and seal it up for us, right?
Yeah.
I heard, I listened to Jeremy Mitchell, which is a friend of yours.
Yep.
Right. He's a mutual friend of ours. And, he talked to a guy that had like 900 jobs, right? 900 jobs. He said some of those jobs were just, 20-foot jobs, 10-foot jobs, that type of thing. I think gutter protection and incorporating gutter protection into your gutter business will help to eliminate some of that stuff and help to differentiate, because now you can pick a gutter protection system, like I said, that has that unique selling proposition.
And I don't know what your approach was, but my approach for selling any leaf protection is people will be like, oh, well, they don't work. You have to clean them off. You may have to clean them off. There may be maintenance that you have to do with them. So I never promise anyone that you never have to maintenance it. But the thing is water's heavy, right? And 1 gallon of water is 8.33 pounds. So if you have a system to where you got leaves clogging up the downspouts and now your whole system has water to the brim, you got hundreds of pounds just hanging at the edge of your roof line. You're sagging that gutter, but you're also dragging down your roof line. Rot is caused by moisture content. So if you have a water or gutter full of water to the brim, that's just putting moisture up at the roof line, and eventually it is going to cause rot. So there is good reasons to have gutter protection, even if you end up having to maintenance them. And, hey, you could sell the maintenance plan on top of it and now have some residual income coming in. So that was kind of my approach to pushing him towards it. But I think you nailed it with having a certain product that kind of differentiates yourself.
Yeah. And, I think that people don't realize what they're missing out on. People talk about, how much maybe a system costs or sales training cost, right? The price. It's how much is it costing you not to have a system? You've got to develop some sort of system. I mean, there's the three players, right? I have a great system. Jeremy Mitchell has a great system. And I think the most exemplary system on the planet is Grasso University and Dominic Caminata. Those people that I just mentioned, they can help you guys develop that system that you're going to be able to do over and over again and be able to predict what kind of sales you're going to get. When you have a system, you can predict. I mean, the average out there is like 45 or 50% closing ratio on a $6,500 sale, right? I mean, good. You got to ask yourself, if I go out and I talk to 100 people and have 100 appointments, am I going to average $6,500 per sale? And am I going to close half of those?
And now you were doing this without follow-up. So this is just strong close on the spot.
No follow-up. I mean,
I didn't do any follow-up either, personally.
Yeah, I learned early on. I mean, when you're out selling meat and you're going door to door and you got the meat on your truck on a freezer, right? You're not, packing that meat back up. You're not packing that meat back up and then saying, hey, okay, we say greenbacks don't give you the paybacks, right? Mm-hmm. Back then, selling meat. So, I don't want to say we're burning that thing to the ground, because if you're a consummate professional, you're going to leave that individual, you're going to leave that potential customer better off than when you got there, whether they buy or not. However, you're going to make sure that you understand that if you've got the best product with the best warranties and you've got the best company and they got the best guy out there, because I'm out there, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to that consumer. If you know this is going to solve their problem, to do everything that you can to be an assistant buyer. And what my philosophy is, to ultimately bridge the pain of purchase over to the pleasure of ownership. So we're building that bridge as we're going along, as we're developing rapport, as we're developing trauma, as we're showing them we're the solution, as we do the proper kill kit and demonstration so that we eliminate the competition, as we give them a 3-option close so it's easy to buy, right? And then as we do the proper button up. When you got a system like that, you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that you do everything you can to be the assistant buyer and overcome their objections. And the best way to overcome the objections, like I said, is to incorporate those into your presentation.
What is your approach on the 3-system close?
Okay. Well, I do what is called a pretty lengthy drum roll before the segue to the 3-option close. That drum roll being what separates you from everybody else. If you're just doing gutters, you've got to have some way. Is your material thicker? Are you using thicker brackets? Are you going to hit every roof rafter at 18 inches on center? Or are you going to skip every other one like a lot of gutters that I've seen before, right? Are you going to pay special attention to make sure they're pitched perfectly, right? What is going to differentiate you from everybody else? You've got to have something that's going to differentiate you from everybody else. And you got to have some sort of way to eliminate the competition. I know how to do it with gutter protection. You got to figure out what's going to separate you, because you got to have some sort of separation, some sort of exclusivity between your company, the other company, your product, the other product, the brackets, the sealant, the way you install it, Something has got to separate you from the competition. Once I've gone through all those things, right? Because when it comes to gutter protection, one of the things that we sell is not, at least the company that I contract with right now, is unlike most people that are going to come out here and say, yeah, Tim, we can protect your gutters and get a gutter protection system up. But the first thing we got to do is we got to replace all of these 3-year-old gutters that you just got 3 years ago, right? We don't do that. We actually rebuild the gutters, right? That water that you saw going back behind there, what we do solves all of that. Because not only are we going to clean those gutters out completely by hand, but we're going to replace all the brackets inside of there. We're going to make sure we hit a roof rafter every 16 inches. We're going to be knocking it up and down, making it pitch just perfectly. Then what we do, unlike most companies that come out, is we're going to seal the end caps, seal around the downspouts, seal around all your inside corners, seal around all your outside corners. So just like when I was a kid and we would race cars a lot on the country road in high school that I was at, good old Deerfield, Wisconsin, we did two things, us kids, chase girls and race cars. And we blew a lot of motors. We were young, broke kids. You think we could afford to buy new motors? No. But guess what we did with those motors? We rebuilt them. You're absolutely right. That's what we're going to do to your gutters. We're going to rebuild these like a high-performing engine before we even think about putting a gutter protection system on top of there. Once that's done, then we put the gutter protection system on there. That's a lot to do. So once I've done that and I've spent enough time letting them know the drum roll and everything we're going to do, that's when I go into the price, right?
There's a lot to be said about making yourself stand out. And the way, like, I sold a lot of my guys, like my salesmen, they would sell all the K-style stuff. So they had $2,000, $3,000, $6,000 tickets. I sold more of the high-end stuff, like commercial gutters, copper gutters. So a lot of my sales were in between 10 to 120 grand.
Nice.
On copper, I had like a 90% close rate, which you would think you're probably not selling it high priced enough. That wasn't the case. One of the last copper jobs I sold was $8,000 more than the competition. What I did was I made myself, I showed what was different and I showed them the details. So like when it came to copper, I was letting them know like every detail, like it's going to be 2.5 feet on center. We're using stainless steel screws, copper rivets, soldering, and it was just telling them all those details and
differentiation.
So I put this, even if I didn't sell it on the spot, I would put this bid together because a lot of these copper customers, they're definitely getting 3 quotes. But me having all these details in there, now they have things to question the next guy, and they start using your details to question the next guy, and that guy fumbles on it. Boom, you got the sale.
Sure.
And so I had a lot of that where it's just I gave them so much detail of what makes me different. And then even if I didn't close it on the spot, now they're using that to question the other guys and they're fumbling on it. And boom, just because they fumbled, they didn't get the sale or because they didn't know that particular detail.
Yeah, just to, circle back, the 3-option close, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, once again, I'm throughout the presentation, seamlessly building the bridge between the pain of purchase and the pleasure of ownership as seamlessly as possible. So if I've done everything right, price is never going to be an area of concern. If you've built the value high enough, differentiated you between the competition, eliminated the competition in your pre-close, and we can reverse back on a pre-close here shortly. But the 3-option close is a sharp angle, multiple choice, alternative of choice close. So at the end, I would simply say, hey, Tim, I always have 3 types of customers when I come out and see nice folks like you guys. The first type of customer, they'll just write a check for this job when we're done. And those people absolutely insist on writing a check, Tim. The second type of customer, they'll use a credit card. Sometimes, I'll run into people that have the same problem you have. They got that water running over the back just like you got. They know that this is a little more urgent, just like it's more urgent now that I'm out here. And they'll use 1, 2, sometimes 3 or 4 credit cards. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people use credit card just because of the miles, right? And the third type of customer that I have is a customer that just does easy pay at 0%. Now, here's the key right here. I'm out of character right now, okay? That's the 3-option close. But then I'm saying, so what type of customer do you think you'd be? A check customer, a credit card customer, or are you like everybody else I talk to? You just at least want to hear more about how these easy pays work at 0%. So that was the 3-option close. If I've done everything right till then, everybody wants to buy. Chris Voss, he's a hostage negotiator. He'll tell you that when they call you out there, they already want to buy. You just have to be careful not to make them unbuy or make them unbelieve, right? So if they want to buy, and I've given them an alternative of choice question about, do you want to take care of it in check, credit card, or do you just want to hear more about how these easy pays work? If they say, yes, we'd like to hear about how these easy pays work, what have they just done?
They almost just bought.
They almost just bought. And because they know what's going on. I mean, subconsciously, they know what's happening, that if they answer one of those, they're purchasing, but it's kind of painless, right? To say, yeah, I'd like to hear more about how those easy pays work at 0%. Now you've corralled them right over. We have got an option for everybody. And I can tell you this, if you don't have financing,
get it
yesterday.
Who do you use for it? Do you have any suggestions?
Green Sky and Wells Fargo are the ones that my current client that I work with, that I subcontract and sell with right now, uses. Wells Fargo is great because of the fact that they've got 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 36. You can get 36 for sure, depending upon what kind of a veteran company you are and what kind of volume. You can potentially get 48 and 60 months. I mean, if you've got 60 months, you can generally get just about every job in $120 to $180 a month with no interest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in this business, if you're not selling the payment, you're cutting your income by 65, 70%, because guess how many of my deals are financed?
How many?
80%. 80%.
Really?
Absolutely. Because, and one of my business associates, I told him that, and he said, that's because you sell the payment. It's because of the way you do the presentation, right? Because $10,000 is a big deal for most folks until that $10,000 turns into $180 or $200 a month payment, right? That's a lot more palatable.
You don't feel it.
You don't feel it. I mean, all of our lives are that way, right? Unless you've become independently wealthy, and then you still know how to leverage your money, right? So even people that are independently wealthy, they're buying on payment. They're not going out and paying cash for a house and cash for race. Even the highfalutin, rock stars and rappers that are telling these fibs about buying the stuff with cash, that stuff.
Yeah.
Budget is where everybody's at. If you don't have a finance program, get it and you'll double the amount of sales that you have right now. And if you can't double them, come to me and I'll show you exactly how to double them.
A lot of their objections to cost might be real. They might not have that money on hand right now. Sure.
Absolutely.
It's kind of eliminating that objection because, hey, you don't have to have that money right now. You can pay smaller.
And it's a lot easier to develop a one-call close sales mastery system, the right now or nothing sale, when it's a payment, right? When they have to think about a 10, 15, 20K deal and where they're going to move around that money and reallocate it, that's a whole lot different than the thinking about, hey, at the end, I say to them flat out, I say, hey, Tim, I mean, for $1,500 worth of savings, doesn't it just make sense to take care of this problem forever so you never have to worry about replacing this fascia board for $30,000 down the road. Because I'm sure you agree, Tim, this problem's not going to go away, right?
So Martel
So
asks,
doesn't it just make sense to take advantage of that $1,500 savings while I'm here? And can you afford $180 a month without taking food off the table? That's a whole lot gentler. That's a whole lot more seamless, right? That helps me to get from that pain of purchase to the pleasure of ownership a lot easier by asking if they can afford $180 a month payment than to ask them, hey, would you like to purchase this $12,000 today? And do you got a check?
yeah, no, I agree.
So got to sell the payment.
Martel's got a question here. If a sale is on the fence, would you consider mentioning the payment plan and or price on the drop? So I guess if they're giving you a little bit of resistance after you tell them the price, is that, I mean, you're going into it kind of already telling them that there's an option for payment plan, right? You're not waiting until the end when they're like, oh, the price.
No, because this isn't the old days where we're going to give them, I don't anyways, I don't give them this big price break because they're using check, credit card, or finance. When it comes to finance, we've developed a procedure and a system whereby the price of the financing is incorporated into the price to begin with. So I'm always using the 3-option close every single time without the bias of result. And if you have the right system in place where you're building the value, right? You're showing them the competition, you're eliminating the competition and getting them to say, yeah, it's going to be either ABC gutters or ABC gutter protection or nothing. Price is not going to be an issue.
So when you're telling them about these options, are you asking those questions, whether they're a check person, a credit card person, or whatnot? Are you asking them that before you actually tell them the price, or is this after you tell them the price?
Well, interestingly enough, it's a little of both. What I do is, I guess it is after the price. Yeah, it's after the price.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm telling them what I'm doing actually is I'm telling them a retail price. A lot of times people will advocate these huge drops in price. I don't think you need to do those huge drops in price. I think it actually is counterproductive if you have these huge drops in price, because you have to have a good enough story for that drop. And the bigger the drop, I think the more credibility you lose, right? So you don't have to have much of a drop, right? It can be $1,000, $1,500, whatever the case may be. But I tell them about that drop, and then immediately from that drop, I go into the 3-option close. And the 3-option close is always spending a little bit of time on the check. Who writes check, credit card, or are you like most everybody else I talk to? I'm using the tribal drawn methodology there. Like everybody else I talk to, you just at least want to hear more about how these easy pays work at 0%. Once they say, yeah, I'd like to know how the easy pays work, they really subconsciously are just really glad that I asked them in that way, right? Because they didn't have to say, yes, I'd like to purchase today.
Yeah, and you're asking them in a way that's letting them know that, hey, almost everybody does this.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, almost everybody does. I would say the last year that I did it full time, direct sales, I would say it was about 74% of all of the customers that I acquired.
So Tommy says, do you refer to that drop in a certain terminology, like same-day signing discount? Just
I absolutely do.
I never did discounts.
I absolutely do that. Once again, it's not a huge discount, but I'm also very upfront about it and why we're doing it. Okay. And I like to do this. I'll have the retail price there. And when I get done and we get the price and I did the drum roll of all the benefits, now we've got a retail price, Tim, that's good for a year. Okay. Now you could call me tomorrow. You could get it for that retail price. You could call me a month from now. You could get it for that retail price. Or heck, you could wait a year. Now, that does not apply to you, this price. That's because when we were talking at the sink, you previously mentioned that if the price or the payment was right, you might consider doing it today while I'm here. So that qualifies you for what we call a same-day purchase discount. Now, what's that mean? That means exactly what it says. That means we call right now while I'm here. We get you on the production schedule while I'm here. You are helping us by keeping our installers busy, booked out 10 days. So we reward you for helping us by helping you back and giving you a same-day purchase discount. That same-day purchase discount normally is this today or this month, it's 10%. That's a lot of money. And I get to figure it out. That saves you $1,200, which brings it all the way down to $9,421. Now, when I come out and see nice folks like you, I always have 3 types of customers. And there you go. You move into the 3-option close. And I think that part of where the same day purchase discount or same day price drop becomes a challenge is when you play games with it, right? Like that's what it is. It's the same day purchase discount. That means you actually get on the production schedule while I'm here today. Now, what did I say? Did I say that means you buy today?
I caught something there that you said, and it was like a pre-qualifying question. You asked them, if the price is right, would you buy today? So you're kind of getting rid of that objection right up front. So you already know that. It's going to come down to price at the end. And if they're saying no, you know what that objection was.
Yeah, we're at least, what we like to call dipping their toes in the water, right? Testing their temperature, because after we do what's called a sink demo, right, we've eliminated the competition. When it comes to gutter protection, you've got all the competitors with you. I always like to say to people this way, what I've been doing for probably 12 years now, Tim, I've been bringing all of the top 10 gutter protection systems with me when I see folks like you. Now, we don't carry these. I'm not going to endorse them. But hey, Tim, sometimes people like to shop around, don't they? Well, guess what? I'm bringing the gutter protection mall with me today so you and I can shop around together. Bring them out, do the prices. And if you're honest about it, you're going to research all their prices. You're going to build the value high on the most expensive gutter protection system out there. I don't want to be on this live like I'm trying to trash anybody, but there's one gutter protection system that's really expensive, one cheap. I show them back in between. Guys, it doesn't sound like you're too excited about any of these other products out there. You didn't like this, you didn't like that. Why didn't you like this? Get them talking about why they didn't like some of those other products. Listen, Tim, that's why you called us out here. You show them your product, right? Then after you show them your product, it sounds like you wouldn't even entertain any of these cheaper versions out here. You eliminate the competition, go to the sink. And when you show that in the sink and you do a masterful sink demo with that gutter protection product, let me ask you guys this. Obviously you got some changes you want to make out here at some point. Am I right? If not now, at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. Seeing how it's not a matter of if, but when, I always like to ask everybody, hey, if I could get the value right, the total investment, or get that initial payment, the no estimate payment rate for you, can you think of any reason other than the right payment or the right price as least consider, let me earn your business while I'm here today? Yes, no, maybe, get out of my house, Bobby. That was a little bit of a tense moment. So I say that, little stupid, corny joke, first off, because I don't look like the guy who's going to tell the stupid, corny joke, right? I don't exactly look like the kid next door, right? So when I say something corny, it's even more corny, right? But what does that do? That releases those endorphins and that dopamine in their subconscious mind. I don't care what they say or what they do. When I say something like that, their subconscious mind is relaxing. Mm-hmm. And they're either going to say, oh, yeah, if the price is right, sure, we'd consider it. Or they're going to say, oh, no, we never make that decision no matter what. But guess what my answer is every single time to that?
What's that?
Oh, no problem. No problem. No worries. Let's take a look at the install and see what you think of that. I'm not trying to close them there. I'm not trying to deal with objections there because there can be no objection. It's not. There can be no objection prior to what? The price.
Mm-hmm.
There can be no objection prior to the price. They were just dipping their water in. But what did I let them know? What am I going to be doing at the end? I'm going to be asking for the sale.
Mm-hmm.
That just told them right there that I'm going to be asking for the sale. Now they get to marinate on that. And I'm not just rushing them with asking for the sale at the end with no prep. The pre-close is just to test their temperature to see where I'm at. Maybe I missed something, right? Maybe I need to double back a little bit, but it's testing the temperature as to where they're at. And if you've done a masterful presentation, if you developed the right rapport, if in the beginning you establish yourself as the professional, if you've created trauma, you've created not only a want, but a need, because this is not going to get better. If you've eliminated the competition, built the right value, did the right sync demo, they're going to say, well, yeah, what the heck? It depends on the price. Sure, that's why I got you out here, right? 9 times out of 10, they're going to go along with it at the sync during the pre-close.
Yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we're kind of running out of time here. How can people work with you or get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, there's 2 ways. I'm going to be collaborating with Dominic Caminata and Matt Burke at Grosso University. That's GROSSO University.com. And you can actually reach out to me. I like to stay very personable. There's multiple ways you can reach out to me, but the best way to do it is to just text me. 608-514-2043. And make sure that you let me know that you were on this podcast and that's how you heard about me.
Good deal, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on here. That was a lot of good information. And
hey, I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor and privilege. I've been watching you and Grant for a while now. You guys are doing it well. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you do not know Tim's story and the way that he recovered from something that maybe most people would have tapped out on. If you want to hear a story about indomitable spirit, if you want to hear a story about not tapping out, if you want to hear a story about facing things head on and overcoming obstacles, you got to check out Tim's story.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. I do have a podcast I just shot about it. I'm going to start talking about it more. Haven't put it out there enough. So
if there's one thing we all have in common, man, and the thing that you did there is to overcome struggle. There's nobody on here, not you and I, not anybody listening, not anybody on the planet that's not either going through a current struggle that your story can help or has gone through a struggle or is going to in the future. One thing we have in common is struggle. So as much as we can lift each other up by sharing those struggles, but not just the struggle, but the overcoming and the shine on the other side that Tim's got right now. Shining.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Hey, I appreciate you.
Good deal, Bobby. So I will talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem.